Am I the a-hole for not paying for my husband's hospital bill? I, female 31, been with my husband, male 36, for 3 years. We don't share finances, and we each contribute to household expenses equally and individually. He's pretty adamant on being respected when it comes to money, meaning I should not be asking him for money to pay for personal stuff. And the same goes for him, save for when it's an emergency. Last month, I was at the mall shopping for a dress to wear at my sister's wedding, and the money wasn't enough. I called my husband to ask him for money, about $200, but he refused even though he had the money. I wasn't upset. Well, yes, I'm not gonna lie, I was upset about it, because I ended up buying a cheaper dress, but I didn't make a fuss or fight with him for not giving me money. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was involved in an accident. It wasn't serious, but his knee was bad but got worse. He asked if I could help him pay for the hospital bill because I didn't expect to stay longer due to his injury, but I refused. He begged, but I said no was still no. He tried to guilt me into paying by saying that I have money, and that is dealing with an emergency. I said his irresponsibility, whether with money or driving, wasn't my problem. He ended up getting help from his mom. In fact, she paid for the entire bill, then grilled me hard about my refusal to pay. She called me a vile witch and said that I was devoid of empathy or any wife material to do this to my husband. I was bothered by her harassment and told my husband to get her to back off, but he sided with her. I had an argument with him about his double standards, where I'm expected to pay for him and him not doing the same for me like the dress incident a month ago. He looked at me in disbelief, called me insane, and said that I was at fault for not helping him, because unlike the dress incident, this was actually an emergency. Even said I stepped out of line to act this petty and vindictive. I walked out of the room to cool off, but it lasted for days and he's still salty about it. Don't even get me started on his mom. Am I the a-hole? I think I was just holding my part of no mixed finances policy. So, to provide more details, when I asked him to help pay for the dress, he asked if he'd get the money back, but I said no, because if I had the money and wasn't struggling, I wouldn't have asked for his help in the first place. That is why I said no. Though he said he'd pay me back when he asked that I help with the hospital bill. Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. Why the heck did you guys get married in the first place? Exactly my thoughts. Marriage is when you work together, not against each other. I kept trying to verbalize what Opie and husband are doing to each other, and they're just doing their best to work against their partner. The level of mutual spite is insane. He's pretty adamant on being respected when it comes to money, meaning I should not be asking him for money to pay for personal stuff, and the same goes for him. Save for when it's an emergency. Everyone sucks here, Opie. Both of you suck. Let's put the your money's yours minus mine for a second. Buying a fancy new dress for a wedding is not an emergency. You had an agreement, and the dress is not included in it. Why did you even ask him? I was upset about it because I ended up buying a cheaper dress, but I didn't make a fuss or fight with him for not giving me money. Stop acting like that's a favor to him. It's a mutual agreement. He tried to guilt me into paying by saying that I have money and that he's dealing with an emergency. I don't see any guilting here. He's stating facts. If you think buying a dress you can't afford is an emergency, per your agreement, why is hospitalization after an accident not one too? He looked at me in disbelief, called me insane, and said that I was at fault for not helping him because, unlike the dress incident, this was actually an emergency. Even said I stepped out of line to act this petty and vindictive. I actually think is right. Calling you insane was spiteful on his part, but he's 100% correct about the emergency thing. And it couldn't be clearer you're being petty and going out of your way to prove your point. You're the a-hole. You specifically say that you don't share finances save for when it's an emergency. You wanting a new dress isn't an emergency. Your husband having an unexpected hospital visit and stay is the very definition of an emergency. They said save their own money for their own emergencies, and then it played victim to mommy. I'm not saying they have a healthy or productive relationship, or that they should be in one period, but both Opie and husband are a-holes. You're the a-hole. The fact that you think I want this dress that's out of my price range is an emergency, and hospitalization after an accident isn't, says some truly terrible things about your character. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for how I reacted when my boyfriend wanted me to pay half his mortgage but not gain equity in the house? I am a 27-year-old woman and I'm getting to a point in my life where I'd consider home ownership. I have a good job in tech and I'm in a low cost of living area and I'd been seriously shopping for a beginner home for myself. My boyfriend, who is 32, owns a house and we are talking about moving in together. That's something I'd like in some ways. I want to take the next step in our relationship and I'd love to build a home together. But I also have some equity as a personal financial goal, whether that would mean owning a home together with my boyfriend or buying my own starter home. But he already has a home and he's the sole owner. He pays $1,300 a month in mortgage and taxes and $430 in utilities. He wanted me to move in with him and pay half of that. So $650 for the monthly payment and $215 for the utilities. So $865 total. But it'd still be the sole owner. I said that I'd either want to be living somewhere I'd be gaining home equity, or establish a rental agreement that is at least as good as my current rental situation, which is allowing me to save for a down payment. And if it's going the rental way, I'd want to lease and all the rights and responsibilities of the lessor, him and the lessee, me, laid out. For example, the maintenance responsibilities being on the landlord, term of occupancy defined, a written agreement on the cost of rent and other monetary responsibilities. And I'd want to compare that to my current lease. My current landlord is very on top of maintenance, charges me $680 a month for rent, all utilities included. So if his lease agreement ended up being $865 monthly and the building is in worse repair, that would be a harder choice. I wouldn't want to raise my rent to live in worse conditions. I'd want a rent price that is in line with the current rental market. I'd estimate the rent he could charge on the open market for a room in his house in its current condition would be about $400 or $500 max. He got really upset, saying that he wanted to make a serious step in our relationship, and I was treating it like business, like I was putting on my work persona. I said that I wasn't trying to treat this like work. I do have a job where I have to be kind of detail-oriented and argumentative, but I was just trying to make good financial choices for myself just like he was doing. I said that honestly, I didn't think it would be a good choice to pay half of his mortgage, but he is the only one gaining equity. Unless there were other terms that made it more like a rental agreement, with me as a tenant, him taking full responsibility for the property and its maintenance, my rights defined and the price being competitive with the current rental market. He got really frustrated and said I sounded like a gold digger. But I laughed at him and said if I were a gold digger, I'd be living with him for free. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm seriously considering extending my current lease. But I know my boyfriend feels upset I took my work approach out around him, instead of talking like it was a relationship talk. Am I the a-hole for how I discussed moving in with my boyfriend? Not the a-hole. And if anyone is a gold digger in this scenario, it's him. Good for you on looking at this from a business arrangement perspective, because it is. If you decide to live with him, I would go forward with having a signed contract as you've laid out. For you though, you might consider going ahead and purchasing a home but renting it out. That way you're still gaining equity in a property, living with your boyfriend and is still getting some rent. Just a thought. But whenever you decide, getting a contract with a boyfriend to living arrangements and expectations covers you in any circumstance. Not stay home. OP, don't move in with him unless you're going to save on rent. There's no benefit to you as it is. Basically, you'll be saving him a bunch of money, extending yourself further financially, and without a lease or anything, it sounds like he could kick you out if things don't work out. I also bet if something broke, he'd want to share the cost of it. I tell him you'll move in with him with A, leading contract, B, $400 a month in rent, and C, no obligation to help pay for anything else. Then, save up. Buy your own home and rent it out until you two decide if you have a future together, or where that future is headed. Not stay home. Or establish a rental agreement that is at least as good as my current rental situation, which is allowing me to save for a down payment. This seems like a good compromise. You shouldn't have to pay more than your current rental agreement because he owns a house that he bought on his own. That seems like he's trying to take advantage of you. He gets half off his mortgage. You pay more than what you are currently paying? Openly discussing finances is part of a relationship, especially one that's getting serious. You should know each other's income and all debts. and past criminal history/kids should be on the table. There is a difference between being a gold digger and protecting your interests fairly, something your boyfriend seems to be missing. He'd still get a deal even if you only paid the equivalent to what your rent is now, because he'd have extra money he didn't have before. Splitting things evenly isn't always fair. This is one of those situations. Not a-hole. You are being irresponsible adult thinking ahead, while your boyfriend just wants to pay less for his mortgage. His proposed deal would only benefit him. Do your thing, save for your own property and live your best life. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to put my packaged snacks back in the fridge per my husband's request? Hi, I, female 34, am diabetic, and keeping packaged snacks near me is essential, because oftentimes I get low blood sugar due to issues I have with appetite. I don't eat lunch or dinner properly. My brother-in-law and his pregnant wife moved in with us a month ago. The issue began when my sister-in-law started eating my snacks that I usually keep inside the fridge. I tried buying more snacks, but sometimes they run out, and I end up drinking water mixed with sugar in the middle of the night because I don't have anything else to eat, and my husband won't go out to the store and get me anything. I told my husband, and he told me to be patient with his brother's wife because she's pregnant and is considered sort of sick, so she needs to be cut some slack. I had it, to be honest. I moved all my snacks into the bedroom and inside a box just to keep them safe. Sister-in-law said it was strange that I no longer buy snacks, but I told her that I actually still do. I just keep them safe in my room so no one can touch them. She side-eyed me, then an argument ensued after my husband and his brother came home. My husband berated me for being rude to sister-in-law and childish for moving the snacks and keeping them in the bedroom. I told him why I did that though. He knows what was up, but he said I overreacted and that there was no harm in sharing. He demanded I put whatever snacks I have back into the fridge and stop acting like a child. I said that I won't, and if a sister-in-law and her husband get upset, then they need to understand that I'm diabetic and need those snacks essentially. He yelled in my face, calling me childish, then walked out. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law are cold-shouldering me, and my husband keeps pushing for me to put the snacks back into the fridge where they belong, or he won't speak to me as well. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She can buy her own damn snacks. She's just dating a baby, not turning into one. And she should be able to afford them, not paying full rent for a place of their own. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law should spend less time eating snacks and more time job searching/interviewing so they can get on their feet again if they're about to have a baby. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Let me get this straight. 2 adults who are about to bring another human into the world are having a meltdown because you won't share your snacks? Please tell me there is a plan for them to move out soon, because this will not get better when the baby shows up. They're going to have a laundry list of things you should be doing for them. Yeah, when exactly are they moving out? I think Opie needs to move. They don't understand she could die. Unless the pregnant lady is also diabetic. She is not going to die and the baby won't be harmed if she is hungry. Opie will literally die if she doesn't have these handy. Aside from which, they belong to her. The husband yelling at his diabetic wife over snacks is the child. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to buy her own damn snacks. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to keep her hands off your snacks. Your husband needs to back you up. You are drinking sugar water in the middle of the night because there is nothing else? This is wrong. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to be grateful and respectful that you took her in. Her entitled behavior is only going to get worse when the baby comes. I am so sorry. Not stay home and tell your husband to pound sand and buy a mini fridge and get a lock on it. And you don't have to care if anybody likes it. Take care of your own health first. It doesn't sound much like anybody else cares about you and your diabetes. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to kiss my husband's wound? Background. Whenever my 9-year-old son gets injured or hurt, I normally kiss the injured area as a way to comfort him and make the pain go away. I also use it as a source of strength, and he certainly sees it this way. I do not kiss the skin directly, but after I cover the injured area, obviously. My 35-year-old husband got into an accident and had an wound, on the left part of his chest. He has zero pain tolerance, but it takes medication for it. The other day, I was helping change his wound dressing and clean up the wound. Before I could place the new wound dressing, he asked me to kiss it. I refused. It just didn't feel right. His wound was still fresh, and there was already antibiotic ointment applied there, so I just didn't want to do it. He insisted and I kept declining. He then got mad and said that I'd do this with my son. Why not him? I suggested that we just let it go and proceeded to apply the new wound dressing. He stopped me and went on a long vent about how I don't care about him and that I clearly feel grossed out by him to not want to kiss his wound. I thought that was silly and told him to let me finish changing the wound dressing, but he started arguing and had me leave the room. I left and he kept sulking for the rest of the night. He then told my son that mommy doesn't love daddy. I don't want to kiss his wound so he could get better. I was floored. My son actually came at me for upsetting my husband and just made me feel bad all around. I kept thinking that I caused this situation and should have just done what he wanted me instead of creating this tension in the house. So, what do you think? Not today, home. Remind your husband that kissing his boo-boo is a mom's job, not a wife's. If he'd rather have a mom than a wife, he needs to go back to his mom's house. And involving your son in his temper tantrum makes him double the a-hole. I wish I could upvote this 100 times. As a man, this post makes me embarrassed that he represents us. Not today, home. Your husband owes you an apology. Not only would I not apologize to him, I would 100% call him out on his manipulative behavior. Ask for an apology and agreement that he promises to never again use your child as a weapon. That crap is toxic AF. He should apologize to his son too. What a piece of work. This times 1,000. Kids do not forget parents switching about one another and puts seeds of doubt of an unstable household at a very young age. He needs to rectify the situation to the kid. You do not do it, OP. It is his responsibility. This 35-year-old man wanted you to kiss his open wound with ointment on it? Gross. I'm going to go with not day hall here. What husband seems to be missing is that she doesn't kiss the son's open wound either. She says she kisses it after it's bandaged. Hubby's one sick a-hole.